run through some draft prospects today with our man Justin Melo. It's like Melo season. We just can't have this guy on enough at @JustinM_ on X, formerly known as Twitter, but he's still known as at @JustinM_ NFL. Draft Network, Titans, MCM, Broadway, TN. All right, we figure that you've at least gotten a couple hours sleep, so let's start with this. Just your overall thoughts. We've been reading everybody's draft grades. We haven't done it on the air, but we're reading all of them. Just your overall thoughts, Titans draft class.
Well, I think they did a good job of getting a mixture of players that are going to help them right away and long-term starters, right? I think that's the goal, and I think they did a great job filling, kind of marrying needs with best player available, right? Because you should never draft just for one or the other, right? Like you want to get some of the best guys available, but you also got to address the positions you need to address. I think J.C. Latham at number 7, I love that they came out and told you from the get-go he's going to be our left tackle. He's going to start. Let's be honest. If this was the Mike Vrabel or John Robinson era, you would have gotten, we'll get him into camp and see how things go. You wouldn't know which position he'd be playing. You wouldn't have any of that information. So I think a good start there at number 7. With 38, T'Vondre Sweat, potentially the most polarizing pick. But you could see the role that he's going to play. I imagine he's going to start next to Jeffrey Simmons from day one. And then some similar value on day 3 with Cedric Gray at linebacker, a position of weakness for them. Jaquan Jackson's going to play a role on special teams immediately. So certainly they got some instant contributors.
Our guy Justin Melo joining us. I don't want to ask who had the best draft because Blaine and I were talking off our air. He goes, we're not going to know any of this for like 2 years to know anything. Whose draft did you like the most?
I'd probably go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they came in with some holes on the O-line. I think getting Troy Fautanu in the first round is going to be a plug-and-play left tackle. Their class gets better as it goes, though. I think they took Zach Frazier in the second round. I was super high on him. You remember, people were talking about him as a potential first-round pick. He's going to start at center for them immediately. They've got a couple of aging guards on the left and right in James Daniels and the kid they got from Philly a couple of years ago. They got Mason McCormick here in the 4th round, a small schooler that I was really high on. I think he's a future starter for them. They took the Michigan receiver, Roman Wilson, in the 3rd round. I think he comes in and plays in 11 personnel for them right away. They needed a slot so bad. He could play on the outside, too, I think, in 2 receiver sets on occasion. And I also, the Peyton Wilson pick, a flyer 3rd-round pick. I had a top 30 grade on Peyton Wilson from a tape standpoint. Now, the medicals were huge, and that's why he went where he did. But I thought that was a worthy flyer. If it works out for him, that'll be huge for them. So really, really good draft, I thought, in Pittsburgh.
Talking draft time with Justin Melo at @JustinM_ NFL Draft Network and more.
Well, Justin, you informed us about a Canadian player that was going to get drafted. I forget his name, but I did see he did get drafted. Where did he end up, and how do you think he'll pan out?
Well, there were a couple, I think, the one I might have mentioned Gio Manu from British Columbia, the offensive tackle. He ended up going to the Detroit Lions in the 4th round. He went higher than anyone thought he would. That was the guy. He ran like a 4.96 at British Columbia's pro day at 6'7", 355 pounds. That is a moving refrigerator on wheels. So he had 13 top 30 visits, including one with the Lions, who ended up drafting him. A big old, hulking mountain of a man like that, that's going to speak to Dan Campbell's heartstrings, right? Certainly pull on them. So not surprised with the landing spot there in Detroit.
Yeah, I thought it was a DB. I want to say it was a cornerback.
Okay, okay. Then you know what? I got one for you. You're talking Quantez Stiggers, the cornerback. So, fun fact, not Canadian, but played up here in the CFL this past year for the Toronto Argonauts. So that's his big-time Canadian connection. Super intriguing story because he didn't play college football, is what I told you last time. He didn't play a single game of college football. Ended up in the fan-controlled league. Great scouting by my Toronto Argonauts, getting him up here in the CFL. Had a great year this year. He ends up getting drafted. I looked smart coming on here saying he would. He goes in the 6th round to the New York Jets. If you paid attention on Twitter, probably the most viral phone call. The great draft. I love that content, that draft weekend phone call stuff. One of the better ones happened when they called him and told him they were going to be drafting him in the 6th round. Both sides were in tears. Can't wait to see how that plays out for him.
Well, we're on with Justin Melo for at Draft Network, but I want to talk about our fans here. A lot of them are questioning the second-round pick, T'Vondre Sweat. Saying he's not a 3-down player. He's out of shape, off the field character. I mean, kind of break him all down and give us your opinion on everything that kind of they're addressing.
Well, certainly. The strength, the size sticks out right away, right? This guy is about 360, 365 at the combine. They said he played closer to 390, 385 at times. At times he ballooned up to about 385 at times at Texas. And look, the guy was dominant for them up the middle. You can't run the football on them. I think the Titans' vision for him is clear. They told you in the press conference, after they took him, that they think he's a good pass rusher, that he can clog those lanes and push the pocket. I think the vision is you put him next to Jeffrey Simmons, you can't double team both of them, right? You got to pick one or the other. You're going to pick Simmons. Well, now you've given a 365-pound guy a one-on-one, powerful than most people he's going to encounter, right? So I thought it was really interesting how Coach Brian Callahan talked about, as an offensive coach, I don't mind dealing with pressure from the edge because there are things you can do to sort of offset that. I hate planning for pressure up the middle, right? So that's what they wanted. They wanted a guy that can push the pocket, can't move up in the pocket, right, when you're creating push up the interior. So that's the vision for him. Look, only 5 sacks in 5 years at Texas, not a lot of tangible production, but he did have a lot of pressures. The pass rush win rate is better than the sack numbers indicate. Right. That'll be the big question. And I'll be honest, I land somewhere in the middle. There are people who are very concerned to say this guy's going to be a 2-down guy, excellent at stopping the run, but what's the value there at 38? And there are others that tell you he was a very good pass rusher at Texas. He consistently pushed the pocket. He's going to be able to do that here. I mean, if he does, then the value at 38 is really good. If he's a 2-down guy, like a T.R. Tart replacement, then the value is not so good. So, and look, and how he manages his lifestyle away from the facility will be critical to determining that. They're going to monitor his weight. Pay attention to how he shows up to rookie minicamp, right? That'll be our first telltale sign. Okay, this guy's serious about this. He's showed up in good shape. His weight's under control. If we start hearing otherwise, maybe it's cause for concern. Remember, there was some stuff with Traylon Burks when he showed up, right? Some conflicting reports out there, and that's gone the way it's gone, right? And not as productive as you'd hope. So I think we'll have a pretty good early telltale sign on how that can go based on what we see here at rookie camp.
Well, Justin, one more question for me, and that is, of the guys that are left outside of the top 2 picks, which player do you like the most, and which player you're like iffy on? Like, I don't know. Out of the Gray, Brownley, Tulane kid, Williams, the Jackson kid, and then Harrell.
Well, I loved the Cedric Gray and Jarvis Brownley picks. In fact, being honest, I loved the J.C. Latham pick, but those 2 picks going, back to back were the ones that really got me excited. Because Cedric Gray, the need for a linebacker was so dire here, right? They came in without a clear-cut starter opposite Kenneth Murray Jr. They resisted temptation to take one at 38, which I was happy about, by the way. I didn't think they should have gone inside linebacker at 38. Well, they come back at 106. They get a guy that was a 3-year starter at North Carolina, 300-plus tackles, 3 straight years with at least 100 tackles. Played wide receiver in high school, by the way. That shows up when he's playing in coverage, because I think he's athletic enough to play man to man. He's sideline to sideline. He's rangy. He's speedy. He's smart in zone. You can tell he's familiar with it due to his background. 8 career PBUs, 5 interceptions. I think they got a 3-down backer at 106 overall, and that's a huge win. And then Jarvis Brownley Jr. was one of my favorite players throughout this entire process. Like, the guy is physical. He's feisty. He's mean. He's nasty. He's just a complete dog. You watch him on tape, and I said this, I wrote this in an article earlier this week for Broadway Sports Media. I said, number one, he reminds me of L'Jarius Sneed coming out. Now, Sneed had better measurements, so better height, weight, length. Some of those things, there are some limitations with Brownlee's makeup. But you look at the profile, I mean, that's L'Jarius Sneed, right? He wants to press you at the line of scrimmage. He wants to get hands on you. He wants to be physical. They were both underappreciated coming out of school. I mean, Brownlee goes 146. I think Sneed went 138. Like, there are some similarities there to the makeup and how this process has gone. I'm a huge fan of Brownlee Jr. I think he's going to play this year. In terms of iffiness, I know most Titans fans were iffy on the Tulane kid. I didn't share that sentiment with them, to be honest with you. I really liked this guy at Tulane. I think he's going to come in, return kicks, return punts right away. He's faster than the 40 time indicates, and the 40 time was good. It was 4.41, but just for his size, people hoped he'd get into the 4.3s. I thought he was a 4.3 player on tape. I think he'll come in, have a huge role on special teams. I think he can play in the slot. You know, the questions, of course, at that size is beating press man consistently, the catch point. You know, most guys he faces are bigger, stronger than him, but he's so twitchy, he's so explosive. I think the worst case scenario is that he's very good on special teams, and you also have a guy you can create manufactured touches for it on offense, because they're going to line this guy up in the backfield and throw him a swing pass this year. You know, mark my words, like he's that kind of player. You're going to want to get creative and create some opportunities for him.
Great stuff from Justin Melo at the Draft Network.
Do you think Jackson, also based on his history, because he returned a lot of punts and a lot of kickoffs, do you think they envision him as like win both of those jobs and then we'll worry about everything else from there?
I do. Yeah, I think he's going to be their starting special teams player this year. They don't have a clear-cut one on the roster. The other one that could get into the mix, and we'll learn more, I'm sure, as we get through rookie minicamp here, but they signed a UDFA out of Tennessee, so very familiar up those parts. Gabe Lally.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of a background doing it. I don't believe he did it at Tennessee this year, if memory serves me correctly, but he had done it at previous schools, returning kicks and punts. He's been at 3 or 4 different schools, been all over the place in the transfer portal, but he did do it, and he was at the local pro day, Lally was, and he met with the special teams coach for a bunch of time afterwards, and they had him fielding kicks and punts there. So I had a pretty good inkling that guy was going to be one of the UDFAs to the Titans. I see him maybe getting into the mix there on special teams.
You mentioned Gabe Lally signing here. So did Jabari Small, who Tennessee fans obviously will know. There's another guy, Texas Tech guard Cole Spencer. He got $75,000 guaranteed. I saw. I believe that was Aaron Wilson. So that's obviously a dude they like. And Mel, it may have been you or one of your fellow draft writers had talked about Bill Callahan getting to visit with this young man from Texas Tech at one point.
Yeah, I did tweet out that information. I think I broke it when it happened. He was at the Titans local pro day. I believe he was eligible because of a previous school he attended. I think it was Western Kentucky made him eligible. And Bill Callahan met with him for 2 hours after that local pro day, by the Titans local day, that is. He went to the Big 12 pro day, this kid, okay? 4.8, 940. Okay? 30.5 vert, 9.4 broad, 30 reps on the bench. That's, if you guys have ever used relative athletic score, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter, MathBomb, RAS, 9.43 out of 10. Okay, elite athlete, 32-inch arms. He played tackle at Western Kentucky. He's not long enough to play tackle at the next level. I would say Texas Tech did him a favor. They kicked him inside to guard this past year. That's where he's going to live at the next level. There's some injuries in his past you got to look out for, but I'm glad you brought him up because that $75,000, that's more money than they gave any of their other. And they got a ton of UDFAs. They got 13 or 14 on my list I have in front of me right here, and they gave him more money than any of the others.
Well, we give Justin Melo all the money because he knows all the things about the draft at Justin M_NFL Draft Network, Titans MCM, Broadway TN as well.
Well, Justin, you talked about which draft class, which NFL team you like their draft class. Which one did you not like?
Well, I love what the Chicago Bears did in the beginning of it. Of course, I mean, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. The punter in the 4th round gave me a lot of pause. You know, that's a team that's not ready to win now. You know, I thought that was shocking. You don't go into that draft with the holes you have and take. In fact, they took a punter in the 4th. Then that was their last pick. They ended up trading back into the 5th round, back into the 5th round, giving up a future 4. Okay, I hate when teams do that. Everyone told you that this draft was not a very deep draft on day 3. To get back into the 5th round by sacrificing a 4th rounder next year for taking a D lineman that you could have taken with your original 4th rounder. Look, the punter's prolific, okay? He was unbelievable at Iowa. Maybe one of the best punters we've ever seen on the college football scene. But I'm never a fan of drafting specialists. I mean, history will tell you can find one look at Ryan Stonehouse, right? Look no further. You can find one after the draft, certainly, if you've done your homework. I thought for a team that's still building a roster that hasn't been to the playoffs in God knows how long, hasn't come close to, hasn't beaten the Green Bay Packers in a decade, for crying out loud. I was a little surprised that they took a punter in the 4th round.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you. You didn't bring him up. James Williams from the U. I think he's the nephew of Ed Reed, but they're going to move him to linebacker. What are your thoughts? His measurable 6'3", 230 or so, 4'4", 4'5" guy. What'd you see in tape? You think he can do it?
Well, it's the right move to give him the best chance. That's my takeaway, because immediately you looked at the numbers, the testing numbers, that is, you knew right away it wasn't good enough to be a safety, okay? It's crazy when you look at the relative athletic score as a safety versus as a linebacker. He's like a historically poor athlete as a safety and an above-average athlete as a linebacker. That's just the difference between those two positions. They're going to give him the best shot. You saw in the draft video, they told him right away, you're going to get with Coach Frank Bush.
Right.
So there's no question over which position he'll be playing. My question, and this is a good thing, what's the difference? We put so much emphasis on this position stuff. If he was a safety, for example, that only played inside the box, right, came in 3 safety looks, played in the box, he's making tackles, coming downhill, you hide him away from coverage, you're not playing him in single high too high because you're hiding some of those athletic deficiencies. It's the same thing, right? So I think he's got a good chance to succeed. It's always tough when you're making a full-time transition at the next level, but I think he'll be very familiar with it from some of the stuff he did at Miami. I love the size. I mean, he's a huge hitter on tape. It is crazy. He absolutely thumps guys. This team is building a very aggressive front seven with this Denard Wilson defense. Remember when Denard first got the job, one of the first things he said was my favorite quote of all the coaching pressers. He said, no one's ever been successful by defending anything. You have to take it. That's the type of defense they're building under this guy, and James Williams, I think, fits the bill as a big-time hitter.
I know you probably don't have this guy up on your board, but his measurables are somewhat similar, James Williams, but he's actually playing safety for the Ravens. What was the kid's name from Notre Dame off the top of my head that went first round at safety, and he's like a 6'4", but he's a lot thinner than James
Kyle
Williams.
Hamilton.
Yeah,
Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, what was his measurables comparable, like his numbers, athletic numbers, to him?
I'll get you that in 30 seconds. Well, number one, I'll tell you, I thought Kyle Hamilton coming out, I had a first-round grade on him, so I thought there was no doubt about that. I know he was a little bit big, but athletically he tested off the charts. 38-inch vertical, 131-inch broad. That's a 93 percentile result historically for all safeties. The 40 was not great. It was 4.59. But to give you an example, the vertical jump 38 inches, right? That's 80th percentile all time for safeties. You know what James Williams was?
What?
James Williams' vertical
33.
jump, 33.
I was just guessing.
Lower.
I was just guessing. You sure?
Oh, okay.
I was just guessing. I had no idea.
I think it was a 31. If you give me 10 seconds, I'll pull it up right now.
I have no idea.
But I'm pretty sure it was a 31. I think it was a 30. It was historically poor, from what I recall. It was historically for safeties. For linebacker, it was a 30. Sorry, I was 1 inch off. It was a 30-inch vertical. So 30-inch vertical for James Williams versus a 38 for Kyle Hamilton. Okay, so we're talking night and day difference. I know Kyle Hamilton, I get your point, was a big, tall, maybe high-hipped guy as well, but a 38-inch vertical versus a 30. And the 40 time was better. The broad was a lot better, too, on Kyle Hamilton. So across the board, Kyle Hamilton, significantly more impressive athlete.
There you have it. Justin Melo.
Who's the number 1 overall guy for next year? Is it Shedeur Sanders?
It's early, I'll tell you that. I mean, right now, I'm not comfortable saying that any of these quarterbacks are a number 1 overall guy. People are talking about, Quinn Ewers out of Texas. I don't see that at all. I'll be honest with you. I think this time next year, Quinn Ewers is like a 3rd-round pick.
Oh.
So I don't see that. Carson Beck out of Georgia, I think, has a decent chance if he takes a big step forward. As a pocket guy. As of now, I don't think we're going to have a quarterback be the number 1 overall pick next year. I'm projecting it's going to be a significantly weaker quarterback class. I think you'll see one of those edge guys or one of those tackle guys be a first overall pick next year. Excuse me. You got some good edge guys and some good tackles, so I don't see quarterback at all.
Hey Melo, it's Bananas back here in the control room. I've got a guy out of Tennessee that I want to ask about who I've seen some projections of him going top 10 and a couple of him going number 1. James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
Yeah, no, he's a very good football player. I totally see that. When I said I could see some edge guys or some tackle guys getting in that mix, it's funny. He's one of the ones that came to mind to me. I think he rushes with terrific speed, terrific power. He had 9.5 sacks this past year. Okay, that was a breakout year for him. Very, very good football player. I think he takes a huge step forward this year. And again, with no quarterback really in that mix, I think he's got a great chance. If you look ahead to way too early mock drafts, also on the Draft Network, I think we had him at 9 or 10 overall in our mock that published the other day. So this is 5 overall, actually. And funny enough, I didn't know this. I'm looking at it now. 5 overall to the Tennessee Titans. Funny enough, in the Draft Network, way too early mock draft. So he's going to get in that mix. I think he might be the best based on Super Bowl odds, Blaine. So they don't predict.
Oh no, I'm just thinking that means the Titans are going to be horrible. They're picking 5. I wouldn't talk about him.
Super Bowl odds.
So they're not going to be winning games.
As of now, they got 5th worst Super Bowl odds if you look at the big gambling markets. But I look at a guy like him. LSU's got a hell of a tackle as well in Will Campbell. So when I look at those two guys, I'd put my money on one of them right now at number 1.
Oh, yeah. Pierce is he's twitchy too, man. So, yeah.
Very.
Melo, you're also very twitchy. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. We appreciate you. Love your coverage. We get amazing feedback on it. People who want to read all about it, the Draft Network, Titans MCM, Broadway TN. Of course, just follow him at JustinM_NFL. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure's all mine, guys.
Yes, sir. All right, from